I like to rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul.
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He's a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Oh, hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Giaconis. Luke, as we are recording this episode moments after the Tigers lose their first game of the season.
Yes.
If it does become a trend, we will change our recording plan accordingly. But yeah, I mean, 5-1 start. I did not have this on my bingo card.
No, I did not either, and it is more than a pleasant surprise. The thing is, we all knew going into this early part of the season that the schedule was favorable. There wasn't a ton of juggernaut teams, a gauntlet of teams like they had to run through last season. And I was just hoping for Chicago 2 out of 3. I was hoping for the Mets 2 out of 3. I was more than content going 4-2 back home to open the season at home against Oakland. We came 3 outs away from going back home 6-0. So a 5-1 start. I am elated, truly elated. I say that as least sarcastically as possible. I am so stoked. And I will say this, and it wasn't something that irked me. And admittedly, I didn't really get to watch a lot of the game today, Thursday, the doubleheader, because work and whatnot. But I was kind of following along throughout the day. I did drive home, though, listening to Dan Dickerson on the radio. And that was the first time I got to experience that season, which was chef's kiss. Just Dan Dickerson, so absolute GOAT. Dan Dickerson, the man. But
best in the business, for sure.
On Twitter, I've seen a lot of, or X, I should say, I feel like I've seen a lot of call-outs already of players. Like, yeah, Spencer Torkelson is not off to a hot start. He had a rough spring, also kind of a rough start to the season. Jake Rogers has had a rough start to the season. Up to these 2 games of the doubleheader, Colt Keith is up there. You could say the same kind of about Riley Green. He obviously hit the game-tying home run in game 1. And I get all that. I do. And trust me, I've harped on players, and I've taken my shots and sling some mud, because after a while of years of losing and heartbreak, it just kind of comes second nature. But when your team's 5-0, like the team overall is performing very, very well. I get it. Spencer Torkelson just is, I think, going to be this guy that is never going to be this big 1-1, but that doesn't mean he still can't be serviceable. We said that last year when he started turning things around. Is he going to be a 1-1? That we thought he would be, that legendary 1-1 pick? Probably not, maybe not, but as long as he's serviceable and contending and contributing to this team, as I should say, who cares? Who cares? And and when the team is 5-0, I even say who cares even more so, because it's like, all right, if they were 0-5 in every game they lost is because Spencer Torkelson was just completely sucking ass at the plate, then I'd be like, these complaints are warranted. But guys and gals, they were 5-0, 6-0, literally 3 outs away from starting the season 6-0. So
yeah,
maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
And the thing that I would remind folks is that go back literally 1 calendar year ago, and sure, they started against the Rays, but like that Tigers team, the Tigers team of last year, how they performed in April would maybe have won the White Sox series, because the White Sox are very bad at baseball. Maybe steal a game in New York, but they're probably at best, you're looking at that team being 500 going to coming back home to play the Athletics. If that, I mean, I could certainly have seen us doing an episode last year with this schedule start, and we're going, how the heck is this team 2-4 right now? As opposed to we're sitting at 5-1 and in a great spot to pick up 2 out of 3 in the weekend series against the Athletics.
Right.
Again, should they sweep the Athletics? Like, yes, probably, because they are the better team than the Oakland Athletics, but it's hard to sweep a team. And I think that that's important to remember as well, that it's not, most teams don't sweep series when they go places, or at home. And so you at best want to steal one if you can, on the road. And so you expect them to go 2-1 this weekend. And then they have the Pirates, and that'll be kind of like, that feels like the first real test.
Yeah, Pirates are playing good
season
ball.
is and getting into, not to get too ahead of ourselves here, but like getting into that next week or so after this Athletic series where they go Pirates, Twins, Rangers, then we'll actually have a real sense of where this team is. Because if you look at statistically, it's not great from this 5-1 stand. Are the best batting average on the team right now is 286. And so you'd certainly you'd kind of hope that number had a 3 in it. For the best batting average on the team, you got guys, Torkelson, hitting below 200, Colt Keith below 200. Although I'm not worried about that. He's adjusting to Major League hitting right now.
I'm not worried about either of them. Like I'm not.
The one I would say that does concern me, is Javi Baez, who's hitting 188.
Those concerns are warranted. I'll give you that one.
And that's only because like as this clip
that's his
from
ceiling.
the opening from literally 2 years ago when I said this, surely Javi can't be as bad as he was last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the plate discipline and the swing have actually returned to. I mean, not that he had a ton of plate discipline when he was actually mashing, but he does not. The swing is not returned to him mashing, nor has he developed plate discipline, is what it looks like. And so, if we're in for another sub 200 season from Javi, we're potentially in some real trouble.
Yeah, they're 5-1. I mean, this is cause for celebration. You can't just plan the parade already. There's still a ton of baseball left to be played, but this is a great start. The two things I said going into this,
we're going to need to cancel that parade.
Yep, cancel it.
It's scheduled.
Get those balloons. See if you can get your refund back at Party City and get your deposit back. But no, there's a lot more baseball to be played. But I said at the beginning of the year, as we both did, you have to stay healthy. This season, and have a good month of April, have a good start to the season. And thus far, they've done two of those things. Granted, it's only through a 6-game sample size, but they've done those things. I saw some bullshit, too, on Twitter of being like, oh, Tigers are lucky they're 5. No shit. They're playing horrible teams. Like, guess what, assholes? You all have to play those horrible teams, too, at some point. So it counts for you, but it can't count for us. Like, we all play the same amount of teams. I don't make the schedule. I didn't say White Sox, Mets, Oakland to start off the year, but that's how the cards fell. And they're winning the games that are put in front of them. So I'm really proud of the guys. And I think that this is a good confidence boost, to start off this season. 5-1 is nothing to sneeze at. Now you go home, play some very winnable games against Oakland, although for whatever reason, Oakland always gives the Tigers trouble. I think the last series of last season, I want to say the Tigers beat them and took 2 of 3 or 3 of 4. I don't remember how many games it was exactly. But for whatever reason, Oakland, as shitty as they are, always finds a way to get the better of the Tigers, it feels like in recent years. But the one thing I want to talk about this, and it's kind of ironic considering that the reason the Tigers really lost this second game today was because of Alex Fido blowing it in the bottom of the 9th. Take that out of the equation and take out that Andrew Chafin solo shot that he gave up to Paul DeJong over last weekend's series against the White Sox. This bullpen, maybe not statistically perfect, but literally perfect. Like I know they're not all going out there throwing scoreless, hitless, no walk innings, but realistically, perfect. They've been good. They've been so dominant. I've been trying to articulate this the last few days, and I'm so glad now we're doing this episode because I feel like you'll understand where I'm coming from when I say this, and I think most of Tigers fans will. But it doesn't feel that long ago that the Tigers bullpen was by far the weakest part of their team, which is saying something because those
Yeah.
teams in the last 5, 6, 7 years across the board were bad, but the bullpen was glaringly the worst out of all parts of those teams. We had the Al Albuquerques, the Bruce Rondones, a very bad Joe Jimenez, a very wild and erratic Gregory Soto, who still kind of is wild and erratic. The list goes on and on. Drew Verhagen, Ryan Carpenter. And now the feeling that I used to have of this pit in my stomach, like, well, here goes this game, I don't have that feeling anymore. There are so many guys in this bullpen, and I know it's ironic because Faedo and the blown save today, but literally there are so many guys in this bullpen that you put them out there, yep, I'm confident. And I have not had that feeling. I don't honestly think ever in my life as a Tiger fan. Even in the heyday when you had a Jose Valverde who was perfect for saves that one season, he still always made it interesting. I know back in the day, Zumaya, Fernando Rodney, those guys threw hard, but the 06 World Series, if you look back, they couldn't throw the ball to first base. So, from the very beginning of my origin story of being a Tigers fan, the bullpen has always sucked or has always been unreliable. And I think due to Chris Fetter, Juan Nieves, and Robin Lund, those three build them a damn statue today. Because what they have done with the pitching rotation, the pitching staff overall, but in particular the bullpen, it should be studied because it is truly an accomplishment. From Tyler Holton to Jason Foley. I know people like to dog on Alex Lang. He's got some control issues. I don't disagree with that, but I still think he's definitely reliable in the pen. Will Vest, I love Will Vest. Tyler Holton is by far Scott Harris's best pickup thus far during his tenure as president. That is the one move, as I was very critical of Scott Harris's first season. Hats off to him. For what he did getting him and Andy Ibanez, I give him lots of praise because those were sneaky moves that had low risk, high reward, and the reward's been paying off and then some. But you go on and on. Andrew Chafin, Shelby Miller has been great. Faedo has been good too. I know he gave the loss today, but he's been solid too. Joey Wentz, even in the first game, was good across the board.
The home run that tied the game today was a great pitch. Mm-hmm. It was just a better hit.
And it's Pete Alonso. So I'm not going to
it's not like he hung one over the center of the plate that Pete Alonso could mash. Like Pete had to go get that ball. And did. And sometimes that's just going to happen because I think that one of the things that I feel about this bullpen through 6 games, Luke, and you're exactly right that they've been essentially perfect. Because the one thing that the Tigers have not done yet is dominate a game start to finish from the offensive side of things. They're fighting, they're getting guys on base, they're putting some traffic
very
on the
scrappy.
bases, but they're not. They have not yet gone up 4 runs in early days, held that. Because I guess they did go up 3 runs top of the first in the White Sox, but they haven't had the bullpen really come in with a 3-run lead.
Yeah.
And if they can get the offense dialed up just a little bit more, I don't see this bullpen giving up losses if they come in with a 3-run lead, certainly. And probably not even a 2-run lead. That I don't think that they're going to give up those types of losses. 1-run games, it's not overly difficult for a Major League Baseball team to manufacture a single run to retie the game and then walk it off. That's just what happens in baseball. Baseball's a game that's kind of built that way. That's why it's an advantage to be the home team, is because then you can kind of make those choices like that. But yeah, I don't think that now any year in the past, do I think a 3-run lead is safe with our bullpen? No, I don't think a 7-run lead is safe with our bullpens of the past.
I went to a Tigers game in 2019 where they had a 9-2 lead and they lost that game. And I am not kidding. I am not kidding. In the 5th inning, they had a 9-2 lead and the Tigers lost that game.
Even last year,
it could be worse.
Even last year, because at that point I had never seen the Tigers win in New York City. They had a 10-run lead late in that game, and the buddy I was with was like, "How you feeling?" And I was like, way more nervous than I should with a 10-run lead.
Right. Yeah, I think again, and you kind of said it too, advantage of being the home team. Is everyone maybe, and again, I haven't really checked the temperature after the second game, so I'm assuming there'll be some people who are pissing and moaning, but I would hope the logical fan is kind of like, yeah, that's a shitty loss, but we're 5-1. That's pretty awesome. Like, hats off,
Yeah.
Tigers. Good stuff. But also, we're not even talking about the offense, albeit, yeah, still not perfect. We're 6 games in, need to kind of, shake the cobwebs off a little bit. But when it's come time to show up, they've shown up. Carson Kelly hit a ball to the moon on Monday night. You were at that game. You saw it live. I think that ball actually just landed, from what I've been told. That was
It hit my apartment all the way over in Washington Heights.
I hope you have renter's insurance, or Carson. He'll see you in small claims court. I'm just saying. But
Certainly will.
And then in the first game of the doubleheader, Colt Keith came up big. So like this again, this isn't like I wish I could almost tell we could rewind back to last year a little bit when the Tigers went 0 for 3 to start the season against the Rays. Those games were putrid, literally putrid. They were awful, 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 awful baseball games. Not so much the case here. But to keep it on the positive train about things I've really liked this season, along with the bullpen, and you kind of talked about it briefly a second ago, but the overall starting pitching, minus that Kenta Maeda start on Saturday against the White Sox, has been pretty solid. Now, again, I didn't watch the Casey Mize start, which kind of sucks because that's the one start I really did want to see next to Scoobles this season, see how he looked coming back off Tommy John. But from what I can tell, I think he went 4 2/3 or 4 1/3, and he had a couple. He gave up 3 runs, had some walks, had some strikeouts. It seemed kind of, a fine start back for someone who hasn't pitched in almost 2 years. But Matt Manning, who gets the call up for the doubleheader, has thrown a no-hitter 5 2/3. He kept the Mets no-hitless. So, I mean, that's great. And that no-hitter carried into the 8th. And, so, I mean, I've been super pleased, for what we've seen with those guys. That's encouraging. I wonder if Matt Manning, I'm sure we could check Twitter now, but I wonder if he already has been designated back to Toledo, because if so, that's a tough game. You go out and throw almost 6 innings of no-hit baseball only to be optioned right back to AAA. But I guess we can check that here in a second. But beyond, Casey Mize and Matt Manning, Tarek Skubal looked phenomenal on opening day. Jack Flaherty, that Sunday matinee game against the White Sox, I was also very, very impressed with. And Reese Olson, who had a tough first inning against the Mets on that Monday night game, really came back strong and pitched really well also. So, again, the highlight for me through these first 6 games is not only that they almost went 6-0, and not only the positive start, but overall, team-wise, the pitching. Pitching. I've been just supremely impressed with up to this point, and I hope it continues. I know it's only 6 games in, but if they can keep this level of play through the entire season, this team will have no issues winning the American League Central. Now, knock on wood, that's a tall order, but that's where my head's at.
Yeah, and I mean, it is, looking at the way they're playing right now, like, it's not really a shock that this is a roster that had a winning record against their central opponents last year, and this is a roster that has improved in great ways. Scott Harris, again, great job, despite the many questions that have been asked by many Tigers fans, rightfully so, about the way things have been handled. But it does seem, right now seems like we're on absolutely the right track. Things are going well. And yeah, it is like there are a lot of things to praise heavily, and there is nothing that I'm like, this is going to be a real problem at the moment, as opposed to every year previously. This is going to be a real problem was usually a much longer list than the things that we could praise.
Also, if I'm not mistaken right now, one thing that's good to note about the offense through 6 games, and I might be wrong on this, but I think if I'm doing the math correctly in my head and if my memory serves correct, I think 4 out of 6 games the Tigers have hit a home run. So that's encouraging that they do have the long ball that they can beat you with, because I feel like that has lacked in recent seasons. And again, I think this offense will be fine. Is this going to be the best offense in baseball? No, it is not. But I do think give it time to warm up, give it time to cook, and I do think this will be a very productive offense as the season goes along. One thing I want to talk about too offensively, and this is really more of a conversation geared towards AJ Hinch. Now, I have always said this about AJ Hinch. I have liked AJ Hinch throughout his tenure at the Tigers. The one thing that I have had to get over and come to grips with being a Tigers fan, as he's now in his 4th season as manager, he's never going to be a Bobby Cox. He's never going to be a Lou Piniella. He's never going to be a Jim Leland, where he's this old school, get right in your face, show some emotion. And if we're being honest, those managers are kind of all going the way of the dodo at this point. It's not really, it's all analytics. It's all cool, calm, collected, maybe 2 or 3 tosses a year, if that. But, people are kind of almost smartening up, probably for the better a little, and be like, shit, if I get thrown out of here in the 3rd inning, I mean, I love my coaching staff, but, kind of puts our team at a disadvantage of things how I want this ship to run. So that's the one little knock I've had on AJ. But the one thing that has become abundantly clear to me watching these first 6 games of the season, and I think it's time we all just admit it, AJ Hinch is smarter than all of us. Anyone who's on Twitter, any morons who have a podcast, we may have our
baseball.
We may have our gripes, we may have our criticisms, and those are all warranted. We're all entitled to have those. But at the end of the day, when it comes to general baseball IQ knowledge and strategy, AJ Hinch is in the ballpark. The rest of us are just getting in our cars trying to get on the highway to get to the game. So the man is a genius. Watching him construct these lineups this first week or so of the season has been really entertaining. And I get it. And, sometimes people get frustrated because he always trusts the matchups and the analytics and the stat line rather than just being like, well, Kerry Carpenter can hit a home right now. Throw Kerry Carpenter in the lineup. Like I get those frustrations, but through this 6-game sample size, I'm almost like, trust the man. Let them. I mean, what he did Monday night, keeping all those lefties on the bench till the very end, and then it was like McKinstry go, Kerry Carpenter go, Colt Keith go. It was like and then it worked out. It all worked out as they needed it, and then obviously Carson Kelly had the kiss of death moonshot home run. So I've just been so impressed with how he has handled himself, and I am so grateful that we have AJ Hinch at the helm. I don't say this very often, but that was probably one of Al Avila's best moves in his horrible tenure as Tigers GM was locking AJ Hinch into the manager shop.
Yeah, I mean it's I hate to say legacy saving for Al, but nearly so. That like Al Avila won't just go down as the worst GM in the history of the Detroit Tigers. He was, but he'll be the guy that hired AJ Hinch, who I do think has a better shot than not of bringing the Tigers to the World Series during his time in Detroit, and that's huge. Luke, I realize you were not able to watch any of the games today. But there was a moment in extra innings where I was like, AJ about to get tossed here, because he did come out. There was a disputed whether or not a ball had hit Torkelson on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
Torque said it did. They called it a foul tip. They said that it tipped, and then they reviewed it, and then AJ came out and had a little discussion with the umpire crew, and he was as passionate as I am. Like, oh, okay, this is a little hotter AJ than normal, but he did not get tossed, and I kind of wish he had gotten tossed, because I was like, you're coming back out in 10 minutes, like it doesn't it doesn't matter.
No,
they get an early Gatorade.
I think one thing too that's very clear with this Tigers team and AJ Hinch, he has a good relationship with these players. And I'm not saying Ron Gardenhire didn't have a good relationship. I think it was pretty well documented. Brad Ausmus wasn't the most liked guy in Detroit. Obviously, people love Jim Leland. But that's such an important part of a baseball team, of any sport in general. That relationship between coach and player is so vital. And I think his players and his team not only respect him, but you can tell enjoy playing for him. And good things are happening right now for the Tigers. And I'm sure we'll do an episode next week. And if things aren't going their way against Pittsburgh and Minnesota, I might be singing a different tune. But a 5-1 start, folks, is freaking awesome. And speaking of freaking awesome, Jason Benetti. Let's talk about this guy for a second.
Let's talk about this booth. I love it.
I actually had a decent amount of Jason Benetti exposure living in Chicago for many, many years of my life. I was never, not that I wasn't a fan of Benetti. I've never been the biggest Steve Stone fan, and that was his broadcast partner. And I just, in general, like, if especially more recent years, I've had the MLB app. So if, they're ever White Sox are playing Tigers, I would try to listen to a link there or whatever. But if I had to listen, I had to listen. I didn't hate Jason Benetti. I didn't love him. I always was a little bit surprised, like, that I saw him on national broadcasts all the time and how much people loved him. And I was like, I guess I just don't get it. Maybe it's because he plays against a team in my division and my team sucks and his team's good. So he kind of can throw those little zingers in there and it just like rubs salt on the wound for me. But now that he is on our side, and I must say, it is so awesome having a great broadcaster in the booth like that. No disrespect to Matt Shepard. We've had that conversation before. We didn't hate him as much as it seems other people did. Jason Benetti is light years. In 6 games, I have seen more from Jason Benetti than I did in almost 6 years from Matt Shepard as a broadcaster. And it is so refreshing and wonderful. I mean, this is the first time since Rod Mario that I feel like we actually have a competent person in the booth. And I like his banter with Simo. I've seen some people kind of complaining that Simo talks too much. As someone who has been accused of that a time or two, I love it. Keep going, Simo. Keep going. So with Jason Benetti, dude, he's legitimately funny. Like, there have been a few times I've watched the games and I'm like laughing out loud. And I was like, get this man a 10-minute time slot at your local comedy club. Let's get this guy on stage for a set. He's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously great chemistry between Simo and Benetti. That I say to the fans that are unsure of the matchup still, that are offering critiques or whatever on X, of the two of them that maybe Simo's talking too much or whatever. Like they're also 6 games into their time together. And it takes a lot to understand your partner and get that rhythm and flow together so that you can actually feel what's happening, which is also one thing that I think was difficult for Shep, is that he did have sort of a rotating cast of not great partners. And so was not really ever able to like fully establish the rhythm with them. He also was calling a season through the COVID year where he was like trying to call away games from a computer through a screen as opposed to actually being in the stadium and feeling it. Lots of things working against Shep, but Benetti is, we texted about this a little bit, like, and I think you said it, like, maybe the best upgrade of the offseason for this organization was Benetti coming into the booth. And I completely agree. I also like just, the fact that he got to call his first series from the stadium that he knows so well, which created a really great introduction of him to Tigers fans, especially those of us that I don't think I had ever watched the White Sox broadcast of a baseball game. Just because if I was watching a White Sox game, I was probably picking the other team's broadcast team. And if I happened to not be watching, if I was watching a Tigers game, I was obviously watching the Tigers broadcast. So like my exposure to Benetti had just been when he's on national broadcasts. But to kind of get to see the city of Chicago celebrate him, the White Sox organization celebrates him in a really classy way. I think they did a really nice job with him starting the season there. It was nice to get introduced to him that way, because it was a place that he was obviously comfortable. And I sent a text in the first inning of the first game where I was like, we're 6 minutes into this and I love it.
Yeah. One of my closest friends back home in Chicago, he's a very big White Sox fan. He's not in a good mental state right now, as you can probably go figure. But he told me, he said, of all the crap that's surrounding the White Sox right now, he said, I think, and he wasn't being sarcastic, he's like, I think the thing that sucks the most is that we lost Jason Benetti, and now that he's not calling games anymore. Because he was like, even when the White Sox are bad, I would still watch the broadcasts, knowing they would probably lose, but he just was that level of talent that you wanted to hear what he was going to say. What I'm very impressed with him too, he's very good at weaving in and out of stories, but then also calling the game at the same time, while also
Yes.
throwing in some facts, while also throwing in some humor. And whereas the last 5-6 years, I feel like we just heard like Matt Shepard tell dad jokes and talk about like how they golfed on the day off or like went to a cigar bar on the day off, like, and not bad by any means, but it's just like after a while you kind of get, it's like, when you've heard your uncle's same joke 8 years in a row at Thanksgiving, you're just kind of like, all right, what's next? When's pumpkin pie coming? But like with Benetti, you get so much information and entertainment all in one. It's been a while since we've had that, truly probably since Rod and Mario, back in their heyday. So it's been so just pleasantly nice to have those voices. And I think the whole crew, honestly, all together, that ballet is assembled between Benetti and Craig Monroe and Johnny Kane, and even, back in the studio with like John Keating. And we haven't really seen Trevor Thompson or Kirk Gibson yet, or Carlos Pena, but we will at some point. And I'm just there's just a different feel about this team right now. And I'm sure I'm saying that because I'm riding the 5-1 start, but it does feel a little bit different this year. I don't know if that's going to be good ultimately or bad ultimately. I don't know if this is just kind of like, it's freshman year, everything's coming up roses. Is next week the sophomore slump? But yeah, it's been pleasant. So before we get going, let's just look at this upcoming season.
Yeah.
It's not season, up series this weekend. Excuse me. Let's start back at the beginning of the season, and we are going to get Tom Souls' Oakland Athletics. Friday, you're going to get Tarek Skubal starting the home opener. I mean, I know we barely talked about him, but he was fantastic in the season opener last week against the White Sox. I am fully on board with the hype train of Skubal and the Cy Young. I am totally on board with it. Then on Saturday, and this is actually, I knew he was pitching. I just didn't know where he fell in the rotation. But Saturday, this is a game I'm going to be watching closely because I want to see how Kenta Maeda bounces back from that really rough start against the White Sox. I think that is, in my opinion, that is the one true blemish of the start of the season. Kenta Maeda looked pretty brutal that Saturday against the White Sox. And per usual, you have people on Twitter and X saying, get him out of here, get him out of here. First of all, he's not going anywhere, folks. He signed a 2-year deal, so he's not going anywhere. But also, it's one start.
Which is only going to get louder after Manny went hitless.
Yes, true. True. And I guess, when you're judging the starts based on starts, fair, but also like he's not going anywhere. Also, he's a veteran. Like Kenta Maeda, for anyone who thought Kenta Maeda was going to come in this year and win the Cy Young, you're crazy. Kenta Maeda's goal is to go out there, win like 8 to 9 games this year, pitch 5 innings a game, and try to keep it between 3 and 4 runs per game. In my opinion, that's how I'm viewing him.
He's like the upgraded innings eater from what we've been getting the past few years. He's a better pitcher than guys like Jose Urena, but he's not the top guy in your rotation for a reason.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not that. He's definitely gone down since his heyday with the Twins just a few seasons ago, and that's fine. But I just need him to go out there and be competent. Same thing with Jack Flaherty. And what we saw from Jack Flaherty this past Sunday, and he'll close out the Oakland series on Sunday as well. I'm excited. So I overall, I mean, good stuff for me. I don't really have many other things I can say. It's a 5-1 start. I'm excited. I would love to see them finish this weekend. I mean, obviously the sweep is great. 8-1 would be, just total bliss. But if they can get out of this weekend 7-2, I'm stoked. I'm absolutely stoked, and I'm ready to keep the ball rolling.
Agree completely. And then we get the tests, the real tests, as we take the Pirates
next week.
Twins,
and
then into the Rangers.
Pirates.
So
that's actually they're
the next 2 weeks after that series is pretty tough.
Yeah, they get so it goes Pirates, Twins, Texas, Twins, Tampa. So this is a good little stretch now. Let's just see if this little 5-1 start was because they were beating up on some pretty crappy teams, or if this team's got a little bit more fighting than we all think. I'm in particular that you got to win your games against the Twins because they're in your division, but I'm really curious to see how they'll respond against a team like Texas, because Texas can just demolish the baseball. So we will be watching. Going to be interesting, but overall, thumbs up. Go Tigers. Very happy. 5-1. Just let's keep the ball rolling, please, and not look back.
I agree. All right, Luke. We'll talk more Tigers baseball soon. See you,
buddy.
Everybody.